back again with my first read for BookTrek 2022, Vulcan's Glory by DC Fontana. This author has actually written multiple episodes of Star Trek in its various incarnations. So I went into this book with high expectations because this author was so deeply entrenched in the Star Trek universe. It's about Spock's first mission on the Enterprise when Pike was the captain instead of Kirk. So I really loved the idea of reading this book, and it is also why I read it first, because I have been watching Strange New Worlds. Season 1 is complete now, and I absolutely loved it. I just really thought it was just so good, and I finally felt like I have a real Star Trek show to watch. So I was, of course, very excited to read anything I could find about Captain Pike. Sadly, this is the only one I could find about Captain Pike, but I won't complain. I'm really looking forward to reading all the other Star Trek books that have Kirk in it that I've picked up over the last month. So I went into this, like I said, with really high expectations, and I actually was a little bit disappointed. It is a good book. I did really enjoy it. Well, actually, it's kind of a mixed bag. There was a lot I really liked about it, but there was also some things that I really didn't care for in it. So I'll just start with the things that I really liked, and that was Captain Pike. I really loved seeing Captain Pike in a Star Trek story because, of course, the only time that we ever got to see him before Strange New Worlds was that pilot episode of TOS. So, and then, of course, when I watched Strange New World, I kind of became obsessed with him. I think I like him more than I like Kirk. I don't like him more than Picard, though, because Picard will always have my heart. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that, seeing him in action. And also, of course, number one, whose name I have forgotten, because in this book she's always referred to as number one. We do learn her name in Strange New Worlds, but it didn't stay with me. Una or something like that. But anyway, and she was in this as well. I loved her in it. I felt like she, like the character that you see in the pilot is the same character portrayed in this book, and even the same character portrayed by Rebecca Romijn in Strange New Worlds. The only difference is a little bit of physical appearance, a little bit difference in the physical appearance, where Majel Barrett played number one in the pilot episode of TOS, and she had like a bob cut. She had a shoulder-length hairstyle. And the number one in this book has a really long hair, really long dark hair, and it's in a ponytail. She wears it in a high ponytail, and that is also how she wears it in Strange New Worlds. And I have to say, I like her personality better with the high ponytail. I think if Majel Barrett, when she was number one in the pilot episode, if she had had the high ponytail, it would have suited the character a lot better there. However, really liked Majel Barrett in that role as briefly as we saw her, and absolutely love Rebecca Romijn in it. Okay, I'll try not to go on and on about Star Trek Strange New Worlds because I really like that show. And of course, this brings up all of my thoughts about it. So I'll try not to do that. So anyway, so yeah, really liked number one in this. It was a wonderful portrayal. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the portrayal of Spock in most aspects, except for one, which I'll get back to. We got to see inside Spock's head some more. In the opening of the book, he is sitting on a beach, barefoot, and he's running his toes in the sand, which might seem pretty out of character for him, but we learn why he was doing it a little bit later in the book. I'll try not to give any spoilers in case any of you Trekkies want to read this one. So that was very enjoyable. We get to see more about his relationship with Sarek and what his thoughts are on it. We do see Sarek and Amanda in this book. Really enjoyed that. T'Pring is in this book. We get to see him go back to Vulcan to meet up with her to sort of solidify their marriage plans. And let me tell you, T'Pring is... Okay, so it's been a long time since I've seen the episode of TOS where Spock goes into Pon farr and he has to go back to Vulcan. And T'Pring, does the whole thing where she manipulates the situation so that Captain Kirk and Spock are fighting and all that. Now, I remember the episode, but I can't remember it super clearly. But in my memory, she wasn't really evil or like a bad person. She was just very sort of cold and efficient and practical, and she was just trying to figure out how to get herself out of the situation without getting that other Vulcan that she wanted to marry harmed. And it seemed like the most efficient and practical way for her to do so. And even though it's a little cold-hearted, it didn't seem necessarily like evil or whatever. But in this book, she's a terrible, terrible person. She's an outright liar, and she's greedy and highly, highly manipulative. So, like I said, she didn't seem that bad in the episode, but I could be remembering that wrong. The other thing you see in here is Scotty. Scotty's a junior officer in this book. He's not yet the chief engineer. And there's this whole sort of subplot where he is making engine room hooch, which is a sort of homemade whiskey that's really popular among all the starships. And even though it's against Starfleet regulations, everybody just kind of turns a blind eye to it because it's sort of this sort of enjoyable, pastime tradition thing that happens in Starfleet. And so there's an extremely humorous subplot regarding that engine room hooch that he makes. Absolutely hilarious. Completely loved it. I thought it was completely in character. Oh, I just laughed through the whole book every time it came up. It was great. And then there was a murder mystery. It didn't happen at the beginning of the book. It happened more towards the end of the book. There was a theft, so another little mystery about that. I enjoyed all of that. This what you see on the cover here is a gemstone called Vulcan's Glory, and it has a lot of cultural significance for the Vulcans, and it was lost, and they find it. So that's not a spoiler, by the way. I mean, this happens right in the beginning of the book. So, but this gem, I would have liked to have learned more about this, I would like to have learned a more extensive cultural history surrounding this gem, because I never heard of it before. I'm sure it was just made up for the book. If it does show up in the show, maybe one of you Star Trek TOS veterans could fill me in a little bit, because I am rewatching TOS. It's been years and years and years since I've seen it, and I'm not even 100% sure that I saw every single episode. So I have been rewatching it, because once I started watching Strange New Worlds, I realized that my TOS lore is really rusty. So I couldn't remember a lot of the details that I felt were necessary to put all of the pieces together and compare them to Strange New Worlds. So I'm at the end of season 1 currently. The next episode I'm going to watch, that I'm ready for, is episode 28. It's The City on the Edge of Forever, or of Eternity, or whatever that episode was with the whole Guardian thing. So that's the next one. So if this gem pops up somewhere in that show, please do fill me in. I would really like to know more about it. So anyway, I enjoyed all of that about the gem. That was super interesting. Loved it. And there was yet another plot. There was a lot going on in this book, and it's not very long. And I thought that the author actually did a really good job of weaving all of the pieces together in such a short amount of time. She did that rather efficiently, I thought. But one of the other plots that are happening in this book is Captain Pike beams down to a planet that is not as technologically advanced, so he has to go down in disguise. He's been here before. He has made contacts here. I don't remember why he's going down to this planet. But something happens there where there is a potential political issue, and so Pike has to help sort that out. That's another plot going on. So those are the things happening in the book, which I enjoyed all of that, except for the situation on the planet, because it ties into to my big complaint about this book, and that complaint is it was super romancy. There was a lot of romance happening, and I didn't care for that at all. We have Pike, who he and his girlfriend have broken up sometime in the last year, and he still is sort of feeling sorry for himself about it. So he thinks about her a lot. We have number 1, who's in love with Pike, but she isn't saying anything about it. And then Pike does have an attraction for her, and he notices her, but he's not ready to explore that path yet. Then we have Spock falling in love with a junior officer, even though he's engaged to T'Pring. That was ridiculous, actually. I didn't like that at all. And the implication of the fallout from that romance is that he essentially doesn't ever want to fall in love again because of it. And then also on the planet, there is the political situation is actually caused by a romance, which was absolutely silly. I guess it wasn't silly, but I don't know. I wasn't a fan. And there was just too much romance. Every time I turned around, somebody was romancing somebody else or feeling romancy about somebody else or whatever. And I just wanted to read some Star Trek, But, you know, it was fine. I did get over it, but it did cause me to have a little bit of disappointment in what otherwise I thought would have been a really fun book. I also felt like it could have been more detailed. It needed to be longer. If she was going to include all of those plots and tie them all together, it really needed to be in more detail. So the book needed to be, I don't know, maybe a third longer than what it is. I could have used some more detail about each of these situations, minus the stupid romance. But I didn't get that, and I'm not going to complain because I still really like this book, and I would absolutely recommend this to somebody who really likes Strange New Worlds, and also your TOS fans who would be curious to learn more about Pike and number 1. I thought it was excellent for that. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on Vulcan's Glory, and I'll call that the end of the video.